Okay, a lot of you guys have asked how I've done the technique with the TARDIS. I wanted to show you guys that. So I used 3 different paints. And I just got them at Michael's, so any standard craft store. For the base, I've used bright blue, as you can see here. And then I went a little darker blue, which is cobalt blue. And then for some of the accenting, I just went with standard black. Okay, so you're going to have basically 3 different brushes. Or any brushes you have around the house. But these are the ones I like. I like the fine point for some of the detailed work. And this for the basic slap-on paint part. And then I just have a little brush that has just been overused. And I use that for my stippling, which I'll show you what that means in a little bit. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and just start with your blue, with your base. Nothing fancy. Basically just going to slap it on, because when you go back and do your shading later, that's going to cover any little areas that you might have missed. But what you need to decide before you get started is what you want to end up doing with your windows and anywhere that is etched out. I myself like to be able to see the wood through there. So I leave that unpainted. So you just have to keep that in mind when you're putting your paint on. Slap that on. Literally just kind of mush it in. Doesn't have to be real detailed. Matter of fact, I like to leave a little bit of extra paint on there, because that's what kind of gives it the texture that you guys have seen on the samples at some of the shows. Another rule of thumb on painting is you always want to go with your lightest color first. So let's say if I would have started with my accent of my blacks, like down at the base, and then I wanted to go over it with a lighter blue, it wouldn't show as much. Or it would cover. Okay, I'm just slapping that on there. Basically, that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go back with my fine point pen, or brush. I'm going to go in and get my detail around here. You just want to overload your brush. So you have a lot of paint on there. And then just run it across there real carefully and slowly. You're going to do that all the way around. Okay, so now on your next step, you're going to see that I've already, let's go back to this way. You see that I've already done my base. So you're going to see that there's areas that I didn't get just perfect in there. That's fine. That's going to be covered. Because what we're going to end up doing is getting our cobalt blue out. And you don't need very much of your cobalt blue. You don't want a paper towel right next to you. And you get your brush just a little bit wet. Dab off the water. You want to mush that brush around because you want the bristles apart like this. You're just going to barely dip your brush in without very much. See? There isn't a lot on the bristles. Then you're going to go onto a paper towel that you're going to have with you, and you're going to just dab that off until you start seeing where there isn't very much left on the brush. Then you're going to go in. You're going to find anywhere that you would have a shade. So if you see how the light is shining, it's having a natural shade here. That's where you just want to mush this in. Not brush it, just tap it. Go back and pick up a little bit more paint. Dab off. Tap, 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 tap. That's all you're going to be doing. And like in this area right here where I didn't get it painted with the base blue, just tap that in there. And after a while, after you've tapped enough on your paper towel, you can actually pick up that paint again and tab it in. Now what I like to tell people to do, if they haven't painted before, is to go ahead and start on your back side with your practicing of your stippling and your shading. That way by the time you've gotten around to even the next 2 sides, you've gotten the pattern and the look that you're looking for. If you want it heavier than I'm doing it, go ahead and do that. So you've seen I would do that all the way around. Now when it comes up to the top, you do the same thing and think about how the light would naturally shade it. Just going to go up here. You're going to just shade it all around where the wood meets, because that's how it would naturally be shaded. Just like that. Now, when it comes, when you're all done, you're going to see it's going to be finished just like this. Okay? After you've let it dry for a little while, don't panic, because the cobalt blue dries much darker than what it looks like when it's going on. So if you find that you want to do a little bit more and it's still wet, just be patient. You can always go back later and add a little bit more shading in certain areas. It's not going to hurt anything later on. Okay? Now what you're going to do is you're going to pick up your fine point brush again. I like to do all of my detail with the fine point. You're going to get some black. And paint in the handle. Here's a little trick for doing dots. You're going to put that end just like that right in there. You're just going to push it on. It's done. And then I like to let it dry laying down. Now, something you guys have to keep in mind when you guys are drawing, or when you guys are doing the black for the base, if you've built this correctly and you followed the instructions and let it dry, this is going to pull out. So, same thing applies when you are painting this. You want to make sure that you let this stay out when it's drying with the paint. You do not want to paint it in. And you do not want to paint these little areas down here. So all you have to do is paint where it's etched. You'll see this little line. You can paint farther in if you want, but it's unnecessary. You don't have to waste your paint.
On the tab. Goes all the way across.
Yeah. Then what you're going to want to do is come around here, just like I did here. Okay, now after this is dry, if you put this in, if you notice there's little areas that you want to go back and touch up, you can. It's not a problem. Okay, when you're all done, and on the light, all I did was paint just the tip of that black. These are all just suggestions. Basically, this video is just about the technique that you guys have asked about with the shading. And that's what it's going to look like when it's all done. Hope you guys enjoy this. Thanks. Okay, so now what we've done is, now that this is dry, now I feel safe enough to be able to push this in and paint right up to here. Because if you paint it all at once, then you're not going to be able to handle it with your fingers without getting paint all over your fingers and removing the paint from your wood. Now just pull that out just a tad, just like that, and then it can finish drying. If you want to go in just a little bit more, you can. Just like that. Just let it dry completely for about a good 20 minutes. And then you're all done. There's your TARDIS.